Welcome back to another episode of Ignite the Spark Within. This one is a rather fun episode. Joining me, we have Joel Cochran, who is owner and founder of Proclivity, which is a nutrition coaching company where they help develop new relationships with food, help dive into your nutritional habits, and just recreate the entire experience of nutrition, period. And he also does some real estate on the side. I met Joel on a weekend getaway at a breathwork workshop where we actually stayed in the same home together, kind of like a big brother atmosphere in Virginia. It was one of the most amazing experiences and weekends of my life. Truly, we were talking just before this episode was recorded and how that weekend was a huge turning point in my own personal journey in life. And he was a part of that. So I thought it was very important to have him on my show just so we could continue the conversation. And I decided for the first time ever on my show to have no plan and no agenda, no talking points, because Joel and I connect on a spiritual level, a mental level, emotional, and we share the same passion and zest for life. So I really wanted to see where this episode took us. And lo and behold, it took us down the rabbit hole of relationships and manhood and womanhood and different dynamics of relationships, past traumas that we've had in relationships. And it's just a different perspective of the masculine, feminine dynamics in relationships as it pertains to two individuals who have both simultaneously experienced our own trials with relationships at the same time that they are the most important thing to us. So it's a very interesting and sticky topic. And I'm positive everybody is going to find relatable dynamics or habits or traumas in this discussion. And this is just scratching the surface. So a lot of good stuff here. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. And without further ado, here is myself and Joel Cochran. Welcome to Ignite the Spark Within, a podcast designed to do just that. Ignite your spark within you. I'm your host, Sarah Malone, owner of Spark Fitness and Lifestyle Coaching and voted Yahoo Finance's top 10 female coaches to follow in 2021. I believe everyone has a fire inside them, a powerful purpose, a story waiting to be told, and everyone can uncover and unleash this power. Every day you have the choice to either let your experiences shape you or take control and use your experiences to shape the world around you. You were made to experience happiness, freedom, joy, purpose, love, passion, and abundance. Disrupt the status quo, think for yourself, and join forces with those around you doing the same. Join me for thought-provoking conversations along with the strategies needed in order to help you ignite your spark within. That was probably one of the weekends that did change my life for sure.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all had moments where, you look back and you're like, that weekend or that moment, that's my life changed right there.
It was a turning moment.
It was a turning moment. It was a turning page in the book of life.
Wow.
And meeting you was a part of that.
I received that. I received that. And it's only going to get deeper from here.
Yeah, well, you scare me when you say go deep, and I'm sure that you're scaring my audience when you say go deep, because not many people are used to hearing or going deep, which is something you did with me right away. And I'm very grateful for that, by the way, because vulnerability takes strength. And to me, it's a quality that I practice myself too. That's why we were able to connect. But just in general, as a leader, vulnerability is one of the strongest qualities.
Agreed.
So let's talk about that.
Hey,
Joel,
I'm here.
Joel,
Let's do it.
yeah. So I was telling, just for my audience that's listening, I was telling you before this that this is the first podcast that I've ever done where I had no plan going into it, and that was purposefully because I
Yeah.
think I think when synergy happens and when two people are on the same page, gold comes out. So
Mm,
I'm ready to tap
mhm.
into some gold with you, Joel. Shall we?
I'm 100% in. I've been thinking about this, praying about this for some reason. And we didn't connect a couple different times. We had different plans. Hey, well, let's meet here or there. And it just didn't end up working out. Yet God works in just the perfect way to get us to this point right here. And for everybody that's going to be listening, this is going to be good.
I agree. He's very creative, isn't he?
The creator.
Yes, the source. All right. So from your story, I'm very curious to know how you got to the point of understanding and embracing vulnerability.
Mm,
It seems like a big topic for you. It seems like
yes.
it's a value. It's a value of yours.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a song by Andy Grammer. It is oh man, what is the good stuff? The good stuff. Y'all listen to that song, the good stuff is one of it's like we all should have, our particular songs for ourselves. Right. Where it's
I
just
agree.
like, hey, that defines me.
Yep.
That's my pump up song, or that's my celebration song. Y'all want to know me, the good stuff by Andy Grammer.
Okay. The good
And
stuff, Andy Grammer.
and what he talks about in that song is like, don't give me the small talk stuff. Give me the stuff that it burns when you speak about it, right? Like when you say it, it's like, ugh, it's not so easy to be able to let out. And vulnerability is something that I learned very early on, from my brother, who's my best friend. Um, we learned this lesson together because we had this very special moment. We have these moments, you guys, and you guys may be thinking of a friend or a family member, this defining moment. We were just talking about defining moments, right? There was this defining moment when we were freshmen in high school, and we were at this concert, and it was being held at this Christian billiards, right? Pool
Okay.
place.
Yeah.
And we were doing moshing. We were moshing. You know what moshing is, right?
Yeah, of
Throwing
course.
elbows.
Yeah. I can totally see you in that mosh pit, by the way.
Moshing. Well, we kept running into this pool table, and it was a super heavy, super nice pool table. And so we all decided, me and my brother and a bunch of other friends, let's move this pool table. So we start pushing it, right? A ton of us. We snapped the leg off. And we're standing there, and it's me and my brother, and everyone else disappears. And we're standing there with a leg broken of a $5,000 billiard table. And the owner saw that it was broken, didn't see that we moved it. He came over, he said, "Who helped you move this?" And we just stood there, just me and my brother, and said, "We did." And he was like, "No, too heavy. The two of you guys wouldn't be able to move this. Who helped you move this?" And we said, "We did what we did." That was it. And it was a moment where you have these moments in time where your values are going to be tested. Because we can all say, "I'm humble."
Right.
I'm
I
love,
value truth.
leadership. Yeah. Yep. Yet God will give you the opportunity
Yes.
to be able to apply that value,
To live into it.
to press into it. And so that was a moment for us of going, integrity. We stand by what we do and what we say. And that moment for my brother and I helped us to be able to come together even deeper. And so we lost a lot of friends there because they disappeared. And then when we asked about them later, like, hey, like, why'd you guys take off? They got all angry. Like, we didn't touch that table. We weren't doing it. And it was one of those things where, like, again, here's your opportunity. How are you going to seize it? And for the other, 6 other men, men, young boys, we can get
Yeah.
into how I see men and young men. That's a whole nother topic that I would love to get into.
Yes, I would like to dive into masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And all these young boys disappeared. And that was a moment in time in which I talk about a rite of passage,
Yes.
unbeknownst to me, because I didn't have a leader in my life. My dad worked 2 jobs. He didn't want to go home to his wife because in general, it was too stressful to be at home. So it was just me and my brother, my biological brother, at home by ourselves. So we didn't have that leadership yet. That was a rite of passage for me to be able to step into going from a boy to a young man. And it was a rite of passage moving in. And my whole point of this is that this then started creating a bond between my brother and I, in which vulnerability was established, in which honesty was led first. And
Well, what I find interesting about your story is what is so fascinating is this is a tiny, tiny moment that most would, that made a huge impact. And what I find interesting is the moment where, like you said, you get tested, God will send you the opportunity in order to say yes or no. Do I truly live into these values? Like, do I just say that I believe them, or do I believe them by how I act? And that was a moment for you that you didn't even realize that was happening, but it solidified it. And then what I also noticed, the vulnerability was able to exist between you and your brother because there was trust and safety. In that moment, you knew, like, he's not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. This allows a place of safety in order for me to practice vulnerability. And in that moment, it's like you said, you saw your guy friends, your friends that are boys, disappear. And this is an encouraging lesson for anybody who's listening too, is that when you truly step into the values that most say that they have, but they don't have the courage yet to step into them, because it's hard to live by value, especially when you're tested like that. But you see who's going to be around you in the next season when you start to live into that even more, and who's going to disappear. And it's okay to let those people go.
Absolutely.
That was my 2 cents on that. So this rite of passage that you speak of, I think it's important to dive into boyhood and manhood.
Yeah. I mean, I see it in multiple levels, and I truly believe that our society would be better off if we had more of a rite of passage through the levels of becoming a man. And this is how I see it. And this is taken from many different mentors I had and molded into what I believe, right? And what I've read and what I've studied is that we have these different rites of passages that some men go through and some men never go through. And that rite of passage is sometimes created by other men, or it's a situation like what happened to me. There was a rite of passage that I stood independently but dependently with a brother. And the stages of a man go as this, and this is how I see it. You start off as a boy, a young boy, right? And then you go from boy to young man, right? There's that switch into teenager, right? Now you're in high school, right? You start having testosterone. You start trying to understand, like, what do I do with this extra muscle, this extra strength, this extra boldness, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Then from young man, right, we see the rite of passage into 18. Now you can go die for your country, right? You can smoke cigarettes, you can, get porn, right? You can do these different things, right? Again, a rite of passage that society has created. Not that it's actually like a growing rite of passage.
Right. It's a timeline differentiation. It's not like a emotional maturity differentiation.
Yeah, there's not much internal work that usually happens. Again, due to the fact that there is not a lot of men leaders out there, right? Men, you're stumbling. If you're listening right now, uh, I dare you reach out to me, Joel at proclivity.co, and tell me how strong of a man that you are. Give me the actions that you take every day. Give me your values of who you are. Go ahead, Joel at proclivity.co. Reach out to me anytime that you want. Why? Because my inbox will be empty. Why is that? Because most men have no idea what they stand for. So they fall for everything.
Yes.
And so moving on, we go from young man to man. And this is basically where most men get stuck. Most men really struggle to go from young man to man, right? Because manhood is stepping into the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Manhood is starting to look at inward and who am I and what do I represent? Who am I going to bring into my life and who am I going to protect? Who am I going to nurture? And most men don't even get to that point, right?
Well, no, because they don't get to that point, Joel, because what I see in society is that they try to go into manhood too early. They try to take the actions of what a man would do, get married, have kids, do these things before they're truly ready, before they're truly transitioned into a wholesome man. And then so their growth there stops. But their actions their actions that they're taking are manly actions, but not from a manly heart. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you see?
It really depends. From my experiences, let me give you some examples. I've mentored some young men, 25 years old, 24 years old, and I look at them and I go, in jealousy, eyes of jealousy, wishing that I would have had a mentor, wishing I would have had a father who would have stepped in and simply, Sarah, put his arm around my shoulder, kiss me gently on my forehead, and say, I love you, son. I'm right here. Yet any man who's listening to this right now probably is the same, that there isn't a father that can show the strength by the embrace, but the tenderness by the kiss. We miss that. And by being able to have a mentor, somebody who steps in and is able to go, here, son, let me show you. Let me show you. There's a jealousy that I have of mentoring these young men personally, because I seek that mentorship. I seek my earthly father to have that. Yet I took in terms of these transitions of rites of passage, when I went from man, right? Because people think like, oh, okay, so you become a man and then that's it. No. You go from man to being a king, because a king creates his kingdom and protects everything within his kingdom. And then from a king, you become a sage. A sage is the wise one who doesn't get upset of the worldly things, who sees things differently, right? Those pieces of how do we translate, how do we get into those different rites of passages. And when I started building my kingdom, it came to recognizing and realizing I am the patriarch of my family. I am the leader of my father. I am the guide of my mother. I am watching over my cousins, and I'm watching over my brothers and my nieces and nephews. And I stepped into that. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be able to go.
That's huge.
If you've ever sat down with your parents and said, hey, Dad, you were never there for me, and I had to figure this out myself. To look your father in your eyes and tell him that, go for it. To look your mother in the eyes and say, hey, I didn't like the verbal and physical abuse that you gave us as children, and it won't happen anymore.
And have forgiveness in your heart too with that.
For sure. I was standing up for my inner child.
Yes. Yes, I can't even tell you. So just I want to before these thoughts escape me, the sage mentality or the sage has been coming up on my radar
Mm,
and just in talking points with people so much recently. And someone is like, "You're the sage," and I'm like, I had to start looking into it. Like, what does that mean? Because
sure.
sometimes I I feel like you care so much about and you have so much passion about what you're doing that you just step into certain roles. And to me, it's an identity that you take on. That's
Mm,
exactly what you've done. It's an identity. It's not about the individual roles or responsibilities or the logistics of the situation. It's an identity that you claimed
sure.
and then are living that out daily. And that is a hard process and it takes deep internal work. Like
Mhm,
it takes the courage to go deep into the dark recesses of your soul and clean
mm,
them out.
mhm,
And
mhm,
and sometimes not shine the light on it, like just bring it out of the darkness, like because it's still a part of you.
mhm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The and we can pull out anything you want to pull out. If y'all want to hear any of my darkest secrets, they aren't secrets. Because guess what, guys? The devil wants you to keep all of those secrets in the
In the
dark
dark.
because that's where it manifests.
And that's where it has power. As soon as you bring it out, as soon as you speak it out
Mhm.
or bring it to an awareness or even just saying like, "Hey, I need help." Now you've removed its power.
I say you remove its power when you go, hey, on a public podcast, go, hey, let me tell you my deepest, darkest secrets. Let me tell you what tears my
Yeah.
heart up inside. Right.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
listen, I've been going through this process of breaking old patterns, right? And what people
Okay.
need to
Wait,
go
wait,
ahead.
wait. Let's stop there. What old patterns? What
Sure.
has Joel been working on?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. So as of recent, I had in this last year, let's give you guys a rundown. I have my largest growth opportunities for me as a man and moving into as a king and creating a kingdom. My biggest growth opportunities have been with relationships. Why is that? Why is that? I succeed well in relationships. I am fully confident in the man that I am. I stand boldly in the shoes that I have put my feet into, and yet relationships are a struggle because why? Didn't have a dad at home. Mom was tough. Mom was tough. Guys, you get more from your parents than your hair color and eye color.
Yes.
Whatever you're going through, take a look and see what your parents, because this is generational
Yep.
chains. You have the opportunity to break them, yet it's going to be very uncomfortable and very hard. And so my relationships have always been difficult. And over this last year, I got, last 2 years, I got into a beautiful relationship with a beautiful woman, incredibly strong, yet chains of the past. And I came in at that time. You know how some people say, like, oh, right person, wrong time,
Yes.
wrong person, right time. Wrong person, right time was for me. I was
Oh.
ready. I was strong. I have put time into myself, right? I was a strong man. I was ready to come
Wow.
in,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so because I was ready, right time, let's go. I'm ready to take in, I'm ready to
Yep.
receive a woman, and I'm going to be the strength for her. She unfortunately had just had divorced. There was damage from the past. I'm not going to speak on her part, but there was damage from the past that she hadn't addressed, and I came in as the knight in
Knight in
shining armor.
shining armor.
I got this. This is where there's a difference between being a man and a king, you guys. I came in as the man, knowing that I was strong, knowing that I could that I could stand boldly as the man that I am, yet not recognizing, is this where I'm supposed to be? right? A king knows his kingdom and stands boldly in his kingdom, does not stretch himself beyond his kingdom. He allows that to be that and let go and be able to focus on the things that were within his power and within his control, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't. I was outstretching. I was reaching. I'm going to save you. And I did. And I did. And she felt amazing. She said that stuff like, you're the greatest man that I've ever known. You have given me peace. I finally can sleep again. My heart is at rest. All things that women will be like, wow, yes, that's what I want to.
Yeah.
Right? Except what did I do? I disabled her. I disabled her from being able to go inward to become the queen that she is meant to be. Because we have to go into the fire, you guys, for God to be able to mold us. We have to be under extreme heat and extreme pressure for him to finish his work. And when I came in and I took her out of the forge, right? If you guys are familiar with blacksmiths, a forge is what you put the metal in to create extreme heat, thousands of degrees. I took her out of the forge.
The process stopped. Yep.
The process stopped. And so with that, her growth stopped. And then what she do? She attached her emotions to me. So anytime that I swayed at all, because I'm human, because I am a man who is imperfect, it's why I need the grace of God.
And the constant refinement every day.
And the constant refinement. She found herself becoming upset because I was changing.
Right.
Right. Because I swayed and moved a little bit. So it made her sway and move. She didn't want to do that.
Which is such a common issue in relationships. It's called codependency.
For sure. For sure. And
it's like, it's this dance of, I can't tell you with my clients even, because I deal with my clients on a fitness level, sure, but we have personal relationships, and I know those that are those that are willing to go be vulnerable with me, I know everything about their struggles and what they're going through, the tough times with relationships,
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a common issue that I'm finding this. How much do I be there for my partner? How much is enabling them? How much is taking their power away from them? And it's this dance, because we all struggle. Relationships are probably the most important part of all of our lives, and probably the biggest struggle commonly across the board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and what's your relationship with yourself?
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, because the victim mentality, right? The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait in which a person tends to regard themselves as a victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence, right? There's dependency on it.
Yes.
And what we tend to do is we look at people with projections. You made me feel this way.
Yes.
I have one finger pointing this way, but three pointing back at me. Right? I'm sorry, Sarah, your actions are your actions, yet you don't hurt me, I hurt me. You don't let me down, I let me down.
Yeah.
Because I choose to step into this. And when we take responsibility for who we are first and foremost, I'm willing to step into this, then there is no one else to blame but ourselves. And it's not even blaming, it's being able to recognize.
It's personal responsibility. Yeah, it's personal responsibility. And it takes self-assessment too. Because if somebody is in your life and or even just in the relationship period, like let's take you for the example, in this dynamic that was created, like one person seemed whole and one person was looking at the actions of the other to say this triggered something in me, without the step of saying, what about this is triggering me? And what does that mean that inside of me, I need to do some work on? Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. Hey, I'm going to make this really quick. On October 20th through the 23rd, if you are a woman or even if you are a man who knows a woman, any woman that would benefit from this experience, I'm hosting a retreat with my dear friend Kim Egger in Arizona in the beautiful and spiritual Red Rocks of Sedona. We are very excited to bring this retreat. I've been hard at work at creating the content for this retreat for the past 2 years, ever since the pandemic hit. And what I realized is that these women, all people really, but right now we're focused on the healing of the divine feminine. And this is really just going to provide a space for growth, for healing, for rest and reprieve, as that is desperately what we need right now. And the contents and the guidance of somebody facilitating an actual growth experience instead of leaving you out in the cold. You know, if traditional therapy doesn't appeal to you, which it doesn't appeal to most, then this is a great way to experience the healing and transformational experience that something like that can offer you, but in a place where it's completely away from your normal routine, family, friends, and environment. It is a chance to connect with other women that are like-minded and on the same pursuit as you. And we're just going to spend 3 nights together in the beautiful Red Rocks of Arizona, healing, growing, doing the work, meditating, doing breath work, and exploring nature. So if this calls to you, if this appeals to you, we have limited spots available for this retreat, and we're just so excited to bring it to you. So you can email me at sarah@sparkflc.com or at any of the links in my social media bios. You'll find a link there to book a connection call with me, just to make sure that this retreat truly is for you. I also wanted to make an announcement of our sponsors of the show and just thank them. First sponsor is Spark Fitness and Lifestyle Coaching, my baby. This is a holistic health and wellness company that has expanded over the years to include things like Reiki and energy healing, guided and channeled meditations. We do activations of spiritual gifts. We also offer live in-person events for women only and for men and women, like the yoga and sound bowl healing sessions and the full moon women's gathering. There is so much to offer in this one space: fitness, nutrition, holistic healing, you name it, and it's going to be covered under mind, body, and spirit with Spark. And I'm very honored to partner with other partners and investors now to be able to sponsor this show. Our next sponsor, Juice Plus. I've said it and I've said it ad nauseum now that I am not a huge supplement fan, but Juice Plus captured my attention with its ability to bring an immunity aspect to me and help me to function at a higher level, which I was shocked to find out that we are recommended to consume 9 to 16 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And I don't know about you, but that's a lot of food to consume. And with our busy lifestyles, which I'm not condoning, by the way, it can be hard to consume that much food. So what's cool about Juice Plus is that all of this is holistic. It is legitimately powdered fruits and vegetables in a capsule, so you don't have to drink a nasty fruits and greens powder. They also come in gummies if you're not a pill swallower. I don't mind it, so I do the reds, the greens, and the purples, and their fish oil, their omega blend. And I have to say, you know, aside from just taking care of my health, which sometimes can be unseen and unfelt, I legitimately feel a difference in my ability to recover, in my health and vitality and energy. And it's almost like a space is created in your system and you just feel like things are more oxygenated, which, come to learn, that's its sole purpose, to oxygenate your system. So as an athlete and as a workhorse, even if you don't work out strenuously, even if you just live a lifestyle in which you're working a lot, you're creating what's called oxidative stress in your system. And oxidative stress can be very detrimental. You know, it's what reduces your immunity. It's what causes inflammation. It's what harms recovery and muscle building, among other things. So Juice Plus has been a huge crutch and an important aspect in my own journey, not just athletic endeavors, but health as well. So if you need any more information on those, please hit the links in the show notes. They'll take you directly to Spark, the retreat page, and then Juice Plus. And hey, if this podcast is adding value to your life in any way, I just want to ask, there is a donate button. You can donate whatever, however little or as much as you want. It does not have to be recurring, but just as a thank you for, continuing to provide valuable content on this page, it really helps to keep this podcast going and just supports good quality information. You can find that link in the show notes as well. It's what began this show in the first place, and everything is welcome. At the end of the day, my mission is just to continue bringing you high quality, good conversations, a place to come to learn and hear vulnerability, and then so that you become a stronger and more capable human being as well. So anything is much appreciated to help continue this show. And before you get bored and start skipping, let's get back to the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yet that is part of the rite of passage for men, for women, of this rite of passage that we talked about in the beginning of this podcast.
Okay, how so?
So again, when we look at society is pointing outward in almost all things, right? All you have to do is just turn on the news.
Yeah.
Right? You're vaccinated, you're not vaccinated, you're liberal, you're conservative, you're Republican, you, and you, right? How dare Biden say this? How dare Trump did this? You. So we're looking external at all times. So it's then this external place where if I place my power into your hands, I will always feel like a victim.
Absolutely.
Yet if I take that power back and I put it inside, then I am stronger by being able to go, I make my own decisions. And in these passages, in these rite of passages, if we don't go like, everything you need is here within you, God has already placed it upon you.
Yes.
Right. And if we don't go through these passages of being able to recognize these things and celebrate these things in terms of the shifts from a girl to a young woman, and from a young woman to a woman, and from a woman to a queen, and from a queen to a sage, right?
Yep.
And if we don't have other men and women around us who are going like, hey, like I said, with that 24-year-old, right? 25-year-old that I was mentoring, come along with me. Let me show you the way, right? Where that jealousy comes in because I've given him rite of passages. I've taken him through things, right? To be able to get him to step into the fire and sit there and go, hey, I'm right here, but you're going to have to feel this heat by yourself.
I was just going to say that's the rite of passage that I was just thinking that. Thank you. To say that the differentiation of the rite of passage is actually done in, I don't want to say isolation because it's not true isolation. We're never in isolation, but it is absolutely has to be internal. It's an internal rite of passage because for as long as we're looking outside of ourselves to dictate why we are the way that we are, we will never be able to change or grow the way that we are.
We have to look inward first. Yeah.
It's a hard process, man, because you think of how many, billions of people are on this planet.
Yeah.
And all the internal work, I know you and we've done the work, and it's constant work. It's everyday work. It takes commitment and resilience to do it all the time. And there's so much fear that comes in with this process of not wanting to face your shadow side or face the fact of owning and saying, I was wrong, or that really
Mm,
isn't that person's fault. It's my fault for letting that happen, or it's my fault for not having boundaries, or it's mine. It's the ownership. To me, actually, this brings me to the topic of freedom, because we all say we want freedom, right? We fight for freedom, but do we really though? Because true liberation would happen as soon as we took the ownership back, instead of saying you did this to me, or you make me feel this way, or you this, you that, and saying I own it, I didn't do this, or I should have done this, or you name it. That's freedom to me.
yeah, releasing the chains that hold us down
Yeah.
it is
Yes, that's my motto.
yeah, being able to let those go. Yet we're scared of those releasing those chains because they've become
We
a
internally,
comfort.
like, yeah, if we're going to be honest, people like the chains. It makes them feel
Mm,
safer.
yeah, well, it's the example that I give is that, and I agree there. I agree there. There's a part of safety in terms of patterns. Where did we learn those patterns, Sarah? Where did we learn our patterns from?
We learn them from childhood, our parents, the people that
Boom,
project them onto. Yeah.
boom, right? And the people that are around us, right? So repetition is the mother of all skill. And so if we repeat something, we create a pattern. We create a pattern, we know the comfort of it. Yet if we
Yeah.
go to the end, if we imagine this as a path, and we take this path and it's all familiar. We know the ups and downs, we know the lefts and rights, we know where the birds are and where that beautiful tree is. Yet we get to the end and it's the same dead end,
Yeah. It's actually
right?
not
And we go,
comfortable at all.
oh, shoot, that I didn't get to my destination. Right. And so we go, okay, I got to backtrack. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to date this guy again. I'm not going to watch porn again. I'm not going to do drugs anymore. I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore. I'm going to change my job. I'm going to do. And we get to the very start of that path again as we walked away from the dead end. And we go, oh, shoot, but where do I go from now?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
I have to create a new path. Well, let me just see if this one path that just has a different, it could have a different ending. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that it's going to be different. Like, and there's the same tree, and there's the left, and then there's the right. And you're just like, oh, this is so good. And I'm walking, and then I get to the dead end again.
Yep.
And these are patterns. This is where that comfortable comes from. Yet, anytime that you are going to break a pattern, you guys listen carefully, listen. Anytime you're going to break a pattern, it will feel wrong. It will not feel right. Not feel right. And there's a reason I'm emphasizing that not, because you are used to walking on the same path that feels good. It's that internal, like, it just feels right. It just feels right. It feels right with the same ending. But yet when you take a different path, you're not going to know. You're going to be nervous and it's going to be scary. And you're not exactly sure what the destination is going to be. Good. So when you break a pattern, you should feel like, I just shouldn't say that to that person, or it just doesn't feel right to do that.
It feels uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. Yet that's when you know you're breaking a pattern. When you're breaking
Exactly.
a pattern, that's when you sit in it. That's when you breathe through it. That's when you talk about it. That's when you look inward, is when you find that pattern, which is a pattern that, even going back to the story, right? Eventually what ended up happening is that we end up separating after I got her an engagement ring, right? I'm like,
Ooh,
we were going to get married. We were going to
wow.
get, right? We had a house. We were going to have a house together. In 5 days, we went from our names being on a house, $760,000 home, and an engagement ring ready. That was supposed to be ready on Tuesday. We're supposed to close the house on Saturday, right? Something went wonky with the house on Saturday. They want us to pay the transfer taxes on a $760,000 home, which is the wackiest thing I've ever heard. I deal with property and this and that. And I'm like, you're tripping over $1,000 to get to 760,000. Like, this makes zero sense. So we backed out of that. 3 days later, I was supposed to get the ring. The jeweler called, said, hey, this never happens. It was a custom ring, custom designed. They said, one of the diamonds isn't fitting. We're not going to have it ready for your engagement. So in a matter of 5 days, God said, I'm sorry, son. This is not the way. And he came in divine intervention and said,
Divine
nope,
intervention for
and said,
sure.
nope. And then when I went to Minnesota, this is where she was from. When I went to Minnesota, her mom went all wacky and was just super weird conversations and happened that made me back up and go, what is going on? Yet here's the pattern, Sarah. I'm a man, excuse me. I was a man who kept his doors open. Maybe if I'm just gonna leave it open just a little bit and just see, because you never know. You never know. God, right, works in mysterious ways. And so he'll, maybe it's gonna work out. So I kept the door open. You guys, anybody who's listening, you may resonate with this. Keeping the door open, but listen, doors swing two ways.
Yes.
You get to close the door. If somebody wants to walk back through it, they can. You have to make the decision to close the door.
Yes.
And I didn't. And I held on to it, and I created a lot of trauma, both for myself and for my should have been fiance. And I found myself repeating that pattern with a most recent young lady.
So that's really powerful. And I want to reiterate that the door
Sure.
analogy.
Sure.
It's really powerful. I can relate to that because I've done it myself in most every single relationship or scenario. It's kind of like I'm waiting. I would rather have the door, like somebody else close the door than me do it myself, because it's too scary to be like, that door's closed, I'm moving on this way. And like you said, the door is always there if you choose to come back in through it, but differently, not the same. Dr. Henry Cloud talks about this in his book, Boundaries, is that when you're setting boundaries, it's not saying like no and then just making a hard line to say you can't come in my life. It's saying no to that way of doing things. That doesn't work for me. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to train you. We train people how to treat us by the boundaries that we do or do not set. And so, but that doesn't mean like get out of my life forever. But if you're going to accept that person back into your space, into an intimate part of your space, then it has to be different. There has to be clear change. And I think that's the important piece. Like for me, that's what I've always lacked is I would forgive. I always forgive. I'm just a forgiving soul. I always will. And so like if somebody came back and asked to come back into that space or into that role or into whatever, you name it, without clear evidence of change, I would accept them back immediately. And there goes the cycle again. And that was a boundary issue that caused me to feel very unsafe in relationships. But really, the unsafety came from my own lack of boundary setting, or at least the follow through of that. That's very powerful analogy that you just posed of leaving that door open a crack, because then you're kind of like, you're never really moving forward then. You're always just kind of staying there, hung in the balance, looking at the crack in the door, but also looking forward towards your future, not really going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you need to do. Close the door, guys. Close it. You will not open it back up. That's what comes down to you, right?
Yeah.
You is that like, well, I could always open it up because I could forgive and love and no, love yourself, forgive yourself, close the door.
Yes.
If they want to come back through, then your boundaries are offensively, not defensively, because too often we look at boundaries as defensively, right? You've done this, you've encroached, and I will defensively press back. Offensively is moving forward. Defensive is retreating.
That's right? A way different posture. Think about that posture. People, all my listeners, please think about this posture. If you're setting boundaries from a defensive position, like Joel just said, that can manifest its way in anger, in depression, in like just an extreme reaction of the boundaries. And then they're not going to be accurate or effective boundaries, because now you're going to feel like anger or mistreated because of those defensive boundaries that you just talked about, instead of saying like, whoa, I deserve different than that.
Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and place a boundary with love. I place this boundary, and now I still love you, and now I still love myself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
Beautifully
absolutely.
put.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine, guys, that somebody's encroached onto you, and you've backed up, backed up, backed up, backed up, backed up, and you find like, whoa, whoa, look at all this land that I've given up.
Mm.
First thing you need to do is push them back. That's offensively. Hey, no, excuse me, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, and there's my boundary. You've taken back what was already yours, right?
Yeah,
You've
that's
taken back
good.
what was already yours,
Yeah.
instead of what we see it as like, all right, I gave that up, I gave that up, I back 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 up. Okay, now I'll draw the line. That's
Yeah.
defensively.
Oh,
Defensively, we retreat. We've given up our space.
okay.
Yet
Yeah.
when we realize we can step back forward and we can go, no, 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 back up, back up, back up, and there. And maybe it's not all the way where it was when you first started. Yet that's why I tell people, be offensive when it comes to drawing
Yes.
the line.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Push back to where you want your boundaries, where you want your land, your space, and you go, and right there.
So
Then you
good.
draw a line.
I'm gonna add fuel to that fire and say the emotion that the defensive boundary leads to is resentment.
Mhm.
Because if you go, whoa, 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 I'm back, I'm pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. Okay, wait, I'm just gonna draw my line there. We eventually, even after you set that boundary, you're gonna take a moment, it's gonna settle in, and then you're gonna look around and realize, like, wait a second, all of that land used to be mine. What's you did this.
Mhm.
Now you resent that person. And that resentment, even if you're still in a relationship in just a different form with that person, you it's that's hard to come back from. Resentment is the one emotion in a relational dynamic that you really don't want to get to.
Yeah, yeah, because you make them the villain. And if they're the
Yeah,
villain, what does that make you? The
the
victim.
victim.
When you
And it's
point your finger and you say you make someone a villain,
yeah.
you make yourself the victim.
And how do you have a relationship with that?
You don't.
If you see somebody as a villain, you could
You don't.
never be vulnerable in that space. And vulnerability is the path to intimacy.
Correct.
Intimacy doesn't exist without it.
Correct.
Have you ever read the book The Four Horsemen?
Oh man, a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember all the specific horsemen, but for those of you that are listening, The Four Horsemen is a relationship book by, is it John Gottman?
Sure.
Don't, we'll have to look this up. We'll link this book in the show notes. It's a very good book. And this is just gentleman. He's a therapist, relational therapist, and he can sit down with a couple and know with a 98% accuracy if they're going to make it or not.
Mhm.
And because of these concepts that he's developed called the Four Horsemen, and it's, I don't remember each of them. I just know that the last one that he says people can't come back from is resentment.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how powerful it is. And it's true. I mean, I will air some of my dirty laundry. Everybody knows this about me, that I started my business and the best chapter of my life out of a divorce,
Mhm.
kind of a nasty divorce. And that was the basis of of what eventually led to our choosing to get a divorce, or my realizing that it's time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is that resentment? Because when you don't have a safe net to be vulnerable, intimacy can't be created. And now it's like when the space isn't even there for that, resentment builds. And you look at that person and you see that you love them,
Mhm.
but you don't have love for them.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
It's a tough place to be.
Yet we put ourselves there
We do.
when we
And
own it.
and and beautifully now I can look back, Joel, after all of this growth
Of
and
course. Of
a
course.
lot of the work that you've done too, with the
Of course.
language and changing the frame.
Yeah.
As I say, To be honest with you, I was too weak back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was countless times where I could have, if I had known who I was as a woman, as a queen, as a
Mm-hmm.
sage,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
not have allowed it to even get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or or at the very least, I would have listened to my intuition earlier and not even gone into the marriage.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is I tell people this all the time. Life is your greatest teacher. Go live it.
Oh
Go
yeah.
live it. You don't know what being a queen is until you've seen the sacrifice, until you've been broken down. Queens don't become queens, right? The recent girl that I was seeing, I gave this concept to her, and at one point she said to me, I said something about her being a princess, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a queen," and I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You don't know what it is to be a queen, right? I didn't full out tell her then. It
Now, let
wasn't the
me ask
time.
you this. Was that a red
Sure.
flag for you?
No, not at all. Because she has what I really loved about this girl is her ability to want to grow. Yet, what a queen will do, you're gonna get trauma. You don't just come out and be like, oh,
Yeah.
right. I'm a queen or I'm a king. No, kings go to war. Kings
That's
see death, right? Kings go and they're in the thick of it, in the battle of it. They don't just come out as kings, right? You come back. Look at any hero story, right? Look at any hero story. It always starts off feeble. There's a
yeah.
challenge. You rise to the occasion.
Right.
Then guess what happens? There is again something that challenges you. Doesn't matter. Look at all Superman and all heroes you've ever seen. They don't just constantly go up. They don't just constantly win. No, a king is challenged. A king fails, right? A king makes mistakes. Queens make mistakes, right? And you have to be able to make those mistakes, learn from them, come inward, and go, got it. I will move forward from this. I
Yeah.
will not hide behind my ego or my fears. I will expose all of who I am. Why? Because I am confident in the man that I am. And when you step in as a king, you will expose yourself completely, fully nude, fully naked, fully exposed, and say,
Truth.
go ahead and pick me apart
Truth.
all that you want, because you're looking at me because I'm the lion and you are the sheep. And it's so easy to point at me because I am a lion and I'm standing on the rock.
Yeah.
And at any point you want to come and expose yourself to, feel free, come on up. Yet this is where men stay men and kings become kings, is because they will stand on the rock and say, look at me.
Yeah.
And that's what a queen will do too.
Yeah.
And she wasn't ready to do that.
Okay. I got it. And that's different, I guess, if you're with somebody who's clearly like willing to grow into that and say, I am a princess right now, but my path is a queen. And I can resonate that. That's so true. Well, first of all, the hero's journey is a circle.
Mhm.
So you continually go through that path, and you must. And it's a perspective of how we look at trials and battles and problems. They're really, really good. It's
Mhm.
all good. Even darkness is good because it helps us to come to the light or develop our
Mhm.
light. But what I was going to say is I can't tell you how much I resonate with the exposure
Mhm.
that comes with stepping into queendom.
Mhm.
And it's been challenging to say the least, but if you're in tune with God and you understand the process, it's like, okay, I understand it. Even Jesus was exposed, and he was tortured because of it. And people
Mhm.
will pick that apart. But the exposure is it's a tough place to be because
Mhm.
you're very aware, and you're like, I know that you're attacking me, and I know why you're attacking me. And I'm going to stand right here, and I'm not moving my feet.
Mhm.
I'm not moving my feet, and I'm not
Mhm.
dimming my light to come down to that just to defend myself when I know very
Mhm.
well who I am, what I'm doing, and what I'm called to do. And this, I think, can be misinterpreted by society as arrogance or
Mhm.
or being cocky or being selfish. And it is not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between arrogance and confidence and conviction, convicted confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I hear when you're describing this mode, like when you had your arms out. And those of
Mm-hmm.
you who aren't watching the video, he had his arms out like just wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Is that convicted confidence?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it comes down to being able to, are you going to face your own demons? Are you gonna look your people have said to me when I faced my parents, this has happened in February, because when this happened, when I lost the woman who I thought I was going to marry, I took a deep look at myself.
Did you lose her?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. She's gone. She started dating somebody else 2 weeks after we separated. And I fought for her for 7 months in silence and in strength. I didn't, bombard her with calls and text messages. I didn't go to the bottle and drink,
Right.
I sat with my feelings. I sat and cried in the dirt, sobbed like I've never sobbed before, asking God, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want to carry this any longer. Like, take it off my shoulders as I'm sobbing in the dirt and my tears are hitting the sand. And I cried multiple times like that on my knees, completely broken, completely broken. Yet I looked inward. I seeked out what I saw. And when I presented this letter to my parents, and I highly suggest anybody who needs to address some deep stuff with someone else, write a letter, because no one's going to interrupt you when you write a letter. When you're reading the letter, nobody stops you. Nobody's gonna be like, whoa, let me, you don't get to say
Explain
that,
that. Yeah.
because it's not a debate. It's a letter. I'm reading it to you. Right. And to sit there and to tell my parents from the deepest of my heart, the pains that I went through, people said, oh man, you must have felt so relieved. And I said, not at all. I was leading my inner child. If it was the inner child that was speaking that letter and reading that letter, yes, I would have felt relieved. I'm the adult. I am the guide for my inner child. I am the strength for my inner child. That trauma in the past is not me. I will grab my inner child's hand and I will say, hey, watch me. I know they weren't there for you. I know that they hurt you at times, but grab my hand because I'm here to protect you. And so I spoke those words boldly, kindly, with love and with strength. And I was able to walk out of there that day, that night, knowing that I stood up to myself, not for myself. For myself, I'm looking for the attacker. My parents, you, right? Can't believe you weren't there for me. No. I stood up to myself, grabbed my inner child's hand, and said, we move forward together.
Mhm. I love this. I love this. It's the inner child visualization. I take my clients who are seeking further, deeper development and growth. I'll take them through the inner child meditation that I guide them through. And it's basically you come up off of the ground and whatever's around you, and you look down, and your life is a timeline, and you look to the left, and there's the past, there's the childhood you, all the way this photo reel, like a screenshot reel, is all the way expanding to the right, and that would be the future you. And we're going to zoom down to a moment of your childhood and come alongside your childhood you, and you're the onlooker. Like you two are separate. You're observing. And you're giving that inner child, you're giving the you that was that child what you needed in that moment. What did you need? Is it a hug? Is it just to allow yourself to be seen and cry? Do you need to bitch about something? Do you need to, whatever it is that you needed, like give yourself that right now. And then they have two options, Joel. They can come back up without their inner child and say, the healing is done there. We're good. Or you can bring your inner child with you and you can take them along this journey and show them what it should be like, or how you're going to set the example for them where they didn't get it from other worldly sources. It's you and your child now. And I did that for myself. I have a picture of myself as a little girl, must be like 3 years old. And it's taped to my computer so that every day I see her and I remember she's watching you.
That's
She's
right.
watching you. You make her proud. You set the
That's right.
example and you
Yeah,
redo the history and you continue the healing process every day, every day.
I love it.
I love that. Okay. All right. Last thing I want to talk to you about is your unabounding, your abounding joy and like passion, a childlike positivity
Yeah,
for life. Because I think when everybody goes to your Instagram feed, they're just going to see that radiating from you. And I know
that's
you,
right.
so I know what it is. But like, where does this come from? And have you always been this joyous?
No, no. My mom. Again, we get more from our parents than our hair color and eye color, and my mom had a lot of abuse and struggles, and it was there was a point in my life where death, like killing myself, seemed like a great option, right?
Wow.
Where there wasn't joy. There was so much fear and darkness. Yet every night when I dropped to my knees to pray to God, I thanked him for everything I did have. So yes, I was going through a ton of anxiety, a ton of terrible stories that were running through my head, a lot of difficulties. And when you see the darkest, the depths of dark, where you can understand why people commit suicide, and you can relate to that. The opposite of darkness is light.
Yes.
And when I started pulling myself out of that, and when I started recognizing that it's actually not a problem, life is not a problem, you guys. It's an opportunity. Because I can tell you right now, this Wednesday that we're recording this on, this is the greatest Wednesday that I've ever lived. I've ever lived. Why? Because I get to live it. I
Because
get to
you're
wake
talking
up.
to me.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Like, Sarah, you're the most important thing in my life right now. There's
Yeah.
nothing more important to me in my life than you right now. And that is the way we should live life, you guys. That you have people in your life who look to you, who look up to you, who want to be around you, that you have this opportunity to be able to stand. I'm standing right now. I'm
Yeah.
standing doing a podcast and I can speak and I can move my fingers and I'm not in a hospital bed. I'm not being beat to death. I have freedoms, right? I'm not sick. And even if I was sick, great, take me to sickness. And I still have my thoughts and I still have my mouth to be able to speak the words to God and be able to say, and I praise you because you've given me all that. I get another breath. I get to breathe no matter what's going on with my body. I get to breathe. Yes, yes. So the answer is yes. And it's something that I say quite often throughout the day. The answer is yes. Yes, that I get to live this life. Yes, that this day is abundant with so many opportunities, no matter what falls. It's just another opportunity. And I behoove you to start looking at everything, right, guys, if you're listening, as an opportunity, because your mind will start shifting that way. And you will see that even stepping in dog crap with bare feet is an opportunity and is a beauty, because there are some people who will never have shoes. So maybe it's a good reminder that you do get to have shoes. That there's some people who don't have dogs, whether it's your dog crap or your dog's crap or somebody else's dog's crap, right? That there's people that have the opportunity to be able to have a dog, because there's a million people praying for your problems right now. A million.
Or maybe it's an opportunity to clean your shoes.
Whatever you want.
And
Expand it.
that analogy can go very deep. Sometimes I think hmm, our best cleanses, our best breakthroughs, our best light bearing moments happen from getting really dirty and getting really exposed and
Mhm.
getting really hurt.
Mhm. Yeah. Only an opportunity. Only an
It is an
opportunity.
opportunity. And it's also an adventure.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
life is so fascinating. Let's take an opportunity to look around and say, if that never happened, then this wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have
Mhm.
met this person, or this wouldn't have happened, or like, wow,
Mhm.
how funny is that?
Mhm.
And not
Mhm.
in a ha funny, like in a huh, that's funny.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So creative.
There's there's always going to be constriction before expansion. Remember that. We're going to have times of expansion and be able to, wow, that really feels, and I'm receiving, and it's all great. Yet you're going to have moments of constriction. Press into the constriction. Don't run away from it. Press into it. That's
Yeah.
the decision of breaking those patterns. I'm
Yes.
going to divorce my husband, right? There was constriction, and then you move in, like, oh, but I'm not ready, and then back out.
Yeah.
So
Many times.
we never got to the true expansion. We got tight and then a little looser, and then a tight and then a little looser, but we never
Yes.
got to the expansion. And so when you feel that, feel it. And if you feel it loosen up, that means all you're doing is going back to those bad patterns, those
Going back
patterns
to
that you
comfy
know
land.
the dead. Yep. You need to get so dang tight it snaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when you break a bad pattern.
Hmm.
Put enough tension on it that it snaps,
Yep.
and then it's gone and
And it
you're
has to be
expansive.
and it has to be that uncomfortable because that would be like the rock bottom, like that would be the breaking moment. That's a great analogy, that where it snaps, because that's the breaking moment. That's the breaking moment where it just became more uncomfortable. It is, change happens when it becomes more painful to stay where you are than the potential pain of moving forward in a different path.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's the breaking moment. That's when change happens. But that's when breakthrough happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, every time.
Lots of tension. You gotta have that constriction before that expansion. And I just did that this past weekend with my family. I took a box. I don't know if anybody resonates with this. There's gonna be some people who resonate with this. I had a box that an ex-girlfriend gave to me at like 18. It's a nice little box that she put together. Well, what did I do? I started, after each relationship, maybe I'll just put a little keepsake, a little note, a little letter, a little card, a little something, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
got that, your little box or your little folder, your little something, right? And I kept it in the back of my closet in the dark. And
Wow.
it wasn't until this past uh, relationship with this recent girl, um, where I realized, whoa, I'm not drawing the line because of me, not her, because of me. Oh, I see that. I see the pattern. I want to keep the door open. Time to close the door. So I took that box. I created a box. I put that box in the other box. I took it down to my family in San Francisco, my nieces, my nephews, and I told them the story of everything that's in that box, from my past relationships, my heartbreaks, and everything else. And I had them sign that box, right? The outside box. And then I put down all the things, all the bridges that were created together with those relationships that moved me on to the next part of me being a man: strength, patience, purpose, right? That without that person, that bridge wouldn't have been built. And guess what? I helped them build a bridge for them as well. Wherever they went, however they found that, I built a bridge for them as well. So there's bridges that were being built for us to be able to get to the next step of our life as a man and as a woman. Yet there was no reason for me to hold on to it any longer. And so I took that, I signed the box, and I lit it on fire and I burned it down. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let the past be the past. The memories are always still there. They always will have a piece of my heart because I gave that willingly to them, as I will always have a piece of their heart. Yet it was time to close the door. And that it still, I sit in discomfort today, speaking to you right now, because I'm doing all that I can to not go back to this other girl, to be able to close the door and say, nope, the door is closed. And I've gotten rid of all these things. I mean, I just full exodus of all my ex-girlfriend stuff the ring that the engagement ring that I had. Thank God I got a credit. So I got a $7,300 credit sitting at a jeweler right now.
Maybe the
I got
blessing for the one.
the one for sure, right? Yet it's being able to make that statement and going, close the door, close the door.
What is it? Let your yes be yes and your no be no.
And say what I mean what I say.
And with that, I would like to ask you the question that I always ask all of my guests at the end of our episode. Joel,
Yes.
someone could compliment you. What would be the best compliment you could receive?
My greatest compliment is the way that I love. That I will love you whether you are against me or for me. That I will love you whether you are my enemy or my true love. That you will see my love in the actions that I take, and that all of my words will be in congruency with that love. And so if you meet me, I will love you, and I will love my life, and I will love my day, and I will love the people around me. And that would be it. That would be the compliment.
Unconditional love.
Yep.
That's the answer to everything in life, by the way.
That's it. That's it.
Joel, thank you. I had no idea where this was going to go, but relationships seems like a good avenue for us to dive into. It's huge. It's huge. It's very important. And I think it's a good conversation between male, female to have and for people to hear, because it's both sided and it's both and all of the above. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please tell my audience where they can find you and what you do.
Sure. You guys, if you want to check me out, you can go onto Instagram, Joel Cochran _. There was already a Joel Cochran, so I got the underscore at the end. You can check me out on Instagram, Joel Cochran _. I own and run a business, Proclivity. You can check us out, www.proclivity.co. And what we do is we help you create a healthier body and happier life. We do that by being able to get you to a new identity when it comes to nutrition. We dismantle what your beliefs are of yourself when it comes to food and your relationship to food, first and foremost. And then we give you simple, yet not easy tactics to be able to create a relationship with food and your body to get you to where you want to be. So I do that with my amazing business partner, Emily. You can check us out. We're on Instagram as well, proclivity.co. Come check us out. If you're looking for a little nutrition help that is literally unlike anything else you've ever done, come see me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will be continuing our conversation much more beyond this point. But guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as always, I will link all of the information that we discussed in the show notes. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ignite the Spark Within. If this podcast brought you value, or you think it would bring someone else value, please hit that share button. My mission is to reach and help as many people as I possibly can. And you just never know who could use that one good piece of information. And hey, if you have any topics, discussion questions, or ideas for future episodes, you can reach me directly at sarah@sparkflc.com and just write podcast in the subject line. And if you haven't already, please rate the podcast on your favorite podcast channel. This helps bring awareness to the show. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're alerted for all future episodes. Please go ahead and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're interested in pursuing coaching for yourself, you can visit sparkflc.com for more information.